Hi, I'm looking forward to your webinar.
Thank you. You're very welcome here. We're going to start, I think we'll start at 3:05 just to allow people a little bit of time to rush to their laptops, desktops, tablets, phones. Metaverses is the one that we now add to that list. Richard's joining us. Welcome in, Richard Foster Fletcher. I heard a term recently which I do quite like, and it's called the Zoom silence that kills the facilitator. And it's when somebody throws out welcome to somebody and the silence feels like a shot in the back. Not a good metaphor, I know. We're going to start in a few minutes. We're waiting for a few more people. We're at 3:04. I think we're going to start around 3:05. Hello, Richard.
Hey, welcome. Team. How's everybody?
We're good.
We are good, Richard.
Good.
Good to see some friendly faces here. Sorry I'm a bit late.
That's all right.
Henry, how are you?
I'm good, thanks. How you doing, Richard?
Oh, really well, thanks. Thanks for your email as well. I've just been forwarding it around, seeing what might be possible. Shared it on a group as
all
well.
Right, yeah, I thought it might be of some interest.
Yeah, definitely of interest, whether or not, each one of these, we have to find the right one, don't we? The right little area and win it, obviously. But yeah, cool stuff. Stephen, how are you? Got your camera on? Maybe typing. Yes. No mic. That's no problem. Great to see you.
It's going to be very difficult if no one's got a mic for a session that's billed as a conversation between all of us. So I'm just gently hoping that there will be speech. There will be human.
I'm going to try. Let's see who's speaking. Stephanie, your mic's on, isn't it?
Stephanie is also without a mic, and Mark said for now, but I'm rather hoping there's going to be some conversation going on.
Maybe once you inspire us. Okay. I've heard about the legendary Mark Orr personality, so let's see how that plays out today. Jachendra, you're there, aren't you?
Yes, Richard,
hey!
I'm here.
How you doing?
I'm good, thank you.
Excellent. Good to see you. Let's have lots of conversation today. Gisela, is your mic working?
Yeah. Now, yes. I guess it's my camera that seems to be coming and going.
Oh,
also,
okay.
Not really good connection, but yeah, very happy to be here.
Very happy to have you here. That's fantastic.
Yeah, somehow my camera is also not working. I don't know why.
Ah, okay. It's a tech day. But Karen, your mic's working, isn't it?
Yeah, my mic's open. Excellent. And my camera also.
Excellent.
Just the light. Okay, the lights are on. I'm really excited to be here. And yeah, I'm sure Mark will be inspired in a few minutes. I'm sure of that.
I hope so.
Yeah, well, we like a warm welcome anyway. We're not all business. We like to see who's here and say hello and have the human side as well, always. I'm very, very blessed that Paul's here today. So Paul's run one of these sessions already. It was fabulous. So we decided we'd do one more as part of the Skills Hub MK program of events, which actually finishes this week officially, although we have some more plans in place for the College Business Centre in Milton Keynes, physical events. Or tech workshops, I should say. Paul is the design director over at MKAI and unofficially our philosopher in residence. So try him if you want to later on the big questions. We know that some technologies can end up a little bit like boats that drift offshore. And if you think about blockchain, hey, Jachendra, briefly, metaverse, artificial intelligence, for some business leaders, it's like the boat sails into the distance and you think, it's just not for me. I'm not going to get into any blockchain projects. And so part of these sessions is kind of putting a rope around those boats, pulling them back into shore and saying, look, let's start with some simple stuff. Let's understand what, machine learning is off the shelf, what opportunities are in the metaverse. And these are the kind of sessions that we do, really trying to acclimatize people to, where and when their careers and our businesses fit into this. Paul is a wonderful host and facilitator. We're very, very glad to have him here. Karen too from MKI is good friends here as well. You know who you are. People I always love seeing. And welcome new faces as well. These are Paul's digital sunglasses that I'm pretty sure he's going to mention. So Paul's going to jump in today. We're going to, let's keep a lively debate. Let's all learn from each other, grow together as we always do, about how we apply AI to our businesses. It's billed as MK businesses because of the program of work, but if you're not from MK, you are still 100% welcome, and we're delighted to have you here, and we hope you'll join in the conversation. Paul, welcome.
Thank you so much, Richard. And there is a reason why I am wearing these Bluetooth sunglasses that were bought for me for my birthday, but I will take them off for a moment. But there is a reason I've just shown them to you, which is not to show off this gift that I received. I'm also an academic at 3 different universities, and I am feeding a little bit of my own research into this session just to feed a conversation. And the success of the workshop is very much around conversation. And just to mention also that I'm in the middle of penning an email to, I'm assuming he's still the Chancellor, but to Rishi Sunak, a way of generating a very large amount of money for the UK economy, which is needed right now, given the state of the economy, would be to have a tax on PowerPoint. And so the idea would be that for every slide you impose on somebody else, you have to pay £1. And I think we'd solve the financial crisis in the UK. We'd also we'd tax bullet points as well, which could be a good thing. I say that because there will be some slides, but there won't be any bullet points, just a few pictures, a few ideas. But I really am inviting you, if you don't feel comfortable speaking, then please do use the chat as much as you like and feed in comments, feed in questions, and let's get a grown-up conversation going on. Certainly, as an academic, there is very, very little in terms of academic research into the role of AI for small businesses. It's still very largely focused on those large corporations, and the assumption for a lot of people around AI is big business, is large tech. And yet already, particularly over the last 18 months, there's been an explosion of AI innovation coming towards affordable products and services for small companies. And you'll see there's a background to that, and I'm going to share just a little bit of research into Milton Keynes specifically, because I think it provides a context. But Milton Keynes, a bit like Brighton, where I live here in the UK, have got some unique features about them around being quite into digital innovation and tech innovation. And would see themselves as having, particularly Milton Keynes, if you ever visit there, was designed as a kind of blueprint for a utopia about how new cities might look. And not surprisingly, it's pioneering projects around driverless taxis and stuff like that. So for everybody here, I'm addressing you as if you're running your own business. Now, whether that's a business that has employees, and whether that's just you as a freelancer, or if you don't run your own business, could I invite you to kind of role play and get into the shoes of somebody right now, somewhere in the world, that's trying to make a business work coming through COVID. And some businesses have thrived during COVID, but others have really struggled to survive. So a little bit of background, but we are going to go into a piece of the feedback last time was really interesting and maybe revealing research around how AI can specifically help small businesses, what the possibilities are. And I'm almost going to give you a shop window, like a child looking into the window. And some of those toys on sale you will have heard of before, but some might surprise you. And just in case Henry was coming, Henry, I've updated it a bit just for you, done a bit more research into this field. So it'd be interesting to see if there's something new for you as well. So let me just dive into the background. But with Richard and Karen and Alex here, please heckle me. Okay, please join in this conversation. I find that really, really helpful. But I'm just going to dive onto my slides here for the moment, head back to the beginning, because I'm literally updating the research that I've been doing for a while. And the research has been, and the criteria have been, what are the new developments in AI that could be used by a small business to help it pilot its way through difficult times today and tomorrow and at the latest next year. So we're not talking about the big stuff. We're not talking about the sci-fi. We're talking about where this stuff can sit alongside us right now. And to do that, I kind of have a master key of ideas. So I'm just inviting you through the door just to share some thoughts around this. Now, as I've said, the way to sabotage this particular 90-minute workshop is to say nothing. And I'm old enough to be able to sit in silence for a long time or just head home. But this will really work if, as with all MKAI events, there's some learning together. I sit with challenge, discomfort, disagree, share your stories, and we'll learn more together if we can do that. Just to throw that right in, Richard, you run a small business called MKAI. Does MKAI as a small business benefit from products or services that use AI right now?
Well, do you know what? You can miss the ones that you do sometimes without thinking about it, but we rely heavily on transcription, which obviously uses natural language processing and understanding. All of our events, including probably, can we see Fireflies here today? Yeah, so if you look down your participant list today, you see Fireflies.ai, a machine learning tool that's capturing the audio and transcribing our meetings, incredibly useful. We send these to clients, to remind them of the calls that we've had and so on. But we're a digital business, so we're not using cameras and computer vision so much. But be assured, if we were and if we had premises, we'd absolutely be using the visual elements of our business as well. We're writing at the moment, and in writing we're using Quillbot, which is an AI paraphraser, so that we can get through research material very quickly. And you'll find AI in tools like Grammarly that we use to help us to write better as a team. We're an international team. I think English is only my first language. Everybody else, it's their second language, apart from you, Paul, and a few others.
So just to check that, Richard, just to dive in. So here's my, oh look, there's some nice sunglasses here. Now, if I put these on Bluetooth and talk, I can use my phone or Google to transcribe my words. And that's not called AI, it's just a nice bit of software. But when I say things like with students, I gave a student feedback recently and said, I was really impressed with your discussing during the session. And it came out, and luckily I checked it. It said, I was really impressed with your disgusting during the session. What does Fireflies do? What's the AI bit that we should get interested in that's beyond the tools that are already there?
Yeah, I mean, just to profess that with AI, I mean, AI is kind of a flexible definition to that. Some people call it, just things that we can't do yet. It could be one definition of AI. But when you actually talk about machine learning, absolutely, just transcription itself is an incredibly powerful tool. We take it for granted now, but computers can understand what we're saying despite our accents and all these problems. It's getting better and better. If you look at it now, it starts to paraphrase the meeting, try and find the key aspects, and that's the next step for it. Context, of course. It's hard enough just to transcribe what we're saying, sure, but that's easy compared to understanding what the key pertinent points were from an hour-long meeting and putting those into bullet points.
So it's getting better at context, it's getting more intelligent in how it takes notes. It's not just slavishly recording what was said.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, there's people know a lot more than me on this call. I don't want to speak for them, but we see these in the home speaker systems as well that we hope are getting better and better, and calling on the right information for us. And and as you think about the metaverse and the opportunities to learn more about the ways that humans interact with each other en masse at scale, you can see how this might get very interesting for broader AI buddies, assistants, support networks, and whether that's just scheduling your plans for you, or counseling you and being a support figure for you, or friendship, or even relationships, right?
Yeah. So last question before I plow on a little bit. But aren't you some kind of good-looking rich kid, or does this cost thousands and you could afford it, or is this a viable tool for a small business to genuinely take useful notes at its meetings?
Definitely not rich, and I've got the filters set to max on Zoom. But if you say so,
so I mean, is this
46% of the world, Paul, is not on the internet, right? I mean, let's start with that stat. That's a horrendous number.
What I'm asking is, Fireflies actually affordable for a business to buy tonight and use?
Oh, for business, sure, yeah. I mean, Oculus Quest's £250 if you're buying it through the business. I think that would be a cheap laptop if you were buying it. So headsets, definitely. Fireflies, £10 a month, free up to a certain amount. Lots of Absolutely.
Thanks for that, because that's the backbone of this workshop. Is we're looking for affordable stuff that actually is useful. And Richard, what you've actually said is, no, you're not a rich kid. You're running a proper business, trying to make it work. You've chosen a tool that works, and it's helping the business. And it's beyond just a digital tool. It's using AI in a way that you can see the benefit. And for me, that's the kind of lens I'm inviting us all to look at, like we would with buying anything else. We do not need to be wide-eyed or bright-eyed about AI. Our test today is it genuinely useful, and do we want to actually use it to make something happen in a way that gives us a benefit? And so the reason for that, just a little bit of the background, is, this is coming out of COVID. 1 out of 4 businesses executives in MK has concerns about defaulting on loans. A lot of businesses are in a very tight place. Our energy costs here in the UK are about to double again in October. There's a whole bunch of other costs. People are finding trouble getting staff, but there's also a lot of businesses that went into, bad credit over a period of time to try and get through COVID. 24% of MK businesses have concerns about the ability to retain their employees. And I'm hearing that all the time about how do we keep our best people, and yet somehow AI is talking about helping to make the business more effective. And certainly, and this is an update for everyone here, there's some research coming out kind of all the time that says that the classic Generation Z and also Generation A, I'm hearing about, want to work in organizations that are exciting digitally. They're hearing about it, they're taking their first steps into the metaverse. So they are not going to work for businesses that don't have a spirit of enterprise around this area. So one of the reasons to just look at this stuff, I'd say very consciously, is because you may find that your digital environment, if it's done well, becomes an exciting place to work. They certainly don't want to work in technophobic companies necessarily. 28% of these businesses fear that they might not have the ability to sustain their supply chains. And so all that kind of stuff becomes important. 28% of businesses have expectations of reducing headcount as a consequence of the pandemic. Still going forward. Still, we're in the pandemic. It's still rippling. It's like the waves that come in. You think the waves have gone out, that tides go out very slowly in the world. And for a while, you think the tide hasn't gone out at all. 36% of them are postponing growth projects. And that's a bit scary, because growth in terms of not just financial growth necessarily, but innovation, we know is key to success. Before the pandemic, small businesses in Milton Keynes had a higher survival rate than the national average. They've got some resilience built in. That's not true in every city in the world. There's a huge creativity in Brighton, where I live, and an even higher failure rate, which we can't necessarily afford to do right now. Around 30% of small businesses in the UK do not reach 18 months. Around 30% of small businesses do not reach 5 to 10 years. This figure hasn't changed for about the last 20 years. It's been around the same. And the longer term failure is to do with a failure to innovate and a failure to experiment and try out stuff, a growth mindset, as Google call it. That actually you need to allow failure. To quote Einstein, the failure, the opportunity to begin again more intelligently. But there's all the other stuff that 30% of small businesses don't get the basics right. They don't even manage their finances properly. They're busy. Sometimes people set stuff up and they haven't been to school for 20 years, and there are skills needed here, and we can't necessarily afford to employ those accountants and those cost people. And it may well be that, as you'll see, AI has got an opportunity to help you here. Welcome to people that are joining us. I am paying tax on my slides here. This is a new way of stopping PowerPoint taking over the session, so this will be brief. We're going to head into conversation very, very quickly.
Just want to check in on some tech stuff here. So Jachendra's saying he's not getting the right screens. Yeah, so Jachendra, he's showing a slide now. It's got an empty office on there, 3 bullet points of information on the screen. So if you're not getting that, see if you can refresh or something.
Yeah. And I have to say, Richard, there are no bullets on this screen. They're just points.
Yeah, because you only took the bullet points out. That's all why.
The key point here is that we know that holding back on innovation in the post-COVID era is a significant risk to small businesses. We can't stop building for the future. That's kind of the key thing.
That's well said. Welcome, Lev. And I mean, Capel, you'd probably comment on that, wouldn't you? That's really up your street, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So very, very useful there, Richard.
Great seeing you. Yeah, what's on your mind?
I definitely agree with what was just said by Paul about the varying degree of impact on Milton Keynes and his businesses. And one of my businesses is actually in a better position because we actually help people who are in financial difficulties. So we are seeing improvement in the volumes in that business. But I completely get what you're saying, Paul, there. And if we apply some of these tools, some of the benefits of information technology, which have happened in the last few years, I think there's definitely a way to survive and maybe even thrive in this pandemic time.
I think that's right.
Yeah, thanks, Kevin.
Just to throw in, I forgot to say one of the ways of sabotaging the workshop too won't be to share our experiences. So thank you for sharing that. It's really good that you spoke. Can people speak? And Richard knows he's got permission to interrupt me when I get into too much of a flow here. But the other point too is this would be a good place not to say how much you know about AI. It's a good place to role play, being a bit open, like you're one of those small businesses that's starting to come out of COVID and wondering what AI might do. And so I'm hoping we'll have that wonderfully naive conversation, because it certainly happened last time. But when we talk about AI, I mean, why do I need AI? I've been running my business for a long time. What is it specifically uniquely that AI could bring to my business? The one where I work from home, the one where we've got a little office above the shop, and it's not that techie. It's got an old calendar and, a pot plant in the corner. Where does this stuff fit into that world? So, of course, AI, one definition is it's somehow an augmentation, possibly even a replacement of human intelligence. It's certainly not a replacement of human intelligence in small businesses, but it is potentially an augmentation of it. And so just very briefly, if you'll just indulge the academic hat, let's just go back to basics. So there's this thing called human intelligence, and we've all got it. But question for anybody to put their microphone on, and this helps us get to grips with, we're talking AI, what do we mean by AI? Can I just throw this open to anybody, but Richard, feel free to bring somebody in because I've got the slide up. Do you think, and you can write this in the chat as well, that you can see what that picture is that AI? Is that artificial intelligence in your view?
I'd like to see the chat. I mean, my immediate reaction is no, because it doesn't seem to be any sort of iterative self-learning development process to that, which is, where I think of AI, finding the patterns, the statistical inferences, those kind of things.
Okay, well, you've set yourself up. Richard, would you say you're intelligent?
Yes.
Okay, what is 2,753.24 times 8,651.265, please?
23,494,612.
Got that wrong, Richard.
I have no idea is the honest answer, Paul.
Okay, so one basic argument, even when I was younger in the 70s, was that you needed to use your intelligence to do that. This calculator can do it right now, and you can't. And so one view, although some people maybe can, is that the old definition of AI was that it was simply able to do a humanly intelligent thing better or quicker. But Richard, your first view was very much where I think AI now is. It's not about processing. It's not about fast computer processing. It's something beyond that. And you mentioned the word pattern. Can you just say a bit more about that?
Yeah, but I'd love to hear some other people speak. I mean, Henry probably, or Jitendra could do a much better job than me.
Yeah.
Jitendra, why don't you pick this one up?
No, actually, I can't see the picture yet. I'm installing the Zoom app because there is some problem.
He's got a picture of a calculator.
Zoom app also, so
it's a picture of a calculator. So would you say a calculator is artificial intelligence?
No, we can't say calculator as artificial because it's when I used to develop software, actually I developed myself a calculator. So it's just a basic of some line of code only. So we can't say calculator as a artificial intelligence thing, because I know lots about the ML and DL and LLP also nowadays. So AI is completely different if you see from the perspective from the coding side. Okay, if you write a coding, okay, and then basically you are giving the instruction to the computer to do certain things. Okay, yeah. But if you think about a machine learning language at ML, like for example, if you choose any of the models, for example, random forest or something, okay, which is that there are lots, okay, that really works like a magic. Okay, if you give the train the data on a certain data, okay, and then once you try to give the certain input to the data, then the prediction will be completely different, which is not there in the result itself, okay, which is completely different input, but output is completely different, which you can predict. And then, yeah, obviously there is some like a little bit of resemblance may be there or may not be there, or that output may be correct or may not be correct, but it's based on the exactly on your data. How much data is there? Based on that, the output will come. So we can't say the calculator as a AI, because it's somebody wrote that what to do after certain input.
Sure. So just to do a bit of imagination of the magic, let's jump ahead a little bit. Let's say something that looks a bit like that calculator or computer. I put in all my costs for the last week for my business, including data of where I paid for this and where I paid for that. And at the end, it calculates, these are your total costs. And actually, you could be 25% more efficient in your costs next week. And I have ordered different materials and different stationery and different stuff from these people and reduce your cost by 25%. Is that AI? Richard, you're nodding a bit.
Yeah, nodding as I to sort of acknowledge the question. Stephanie, what do you think?
Anyone else just want to join in? It's very hard if everyone's silent.
Well,
What do you think?
got his mic on.
Sorry?
Yeah. So actually, the definition of AI, as you know, is very controversial, right? I come from a calculator point of view. A calculator is a rule-based engine which does something based on the inputs, it gives you output based on prior defined rules. While some people will argue that AI is more about learning systems, self-learning systems, which then are using, as Tinder mentioned, random tree models and stuff like that. But probably in the age the calculator was developed, it was AI, right? It's a rule-based system. And just the example you gave now, Paul, about the system in which you feed in all the information and it tells you what to order or it's already orders for you, is also almost a rule-based system. It may have some element of learning based on data from other users who have similar experiences or similar needs as you. It may have learned something from them in terms of what suits them better, and then it would have probably given you an outcome or result which meets your requirements because of the reference data it has from other users. But it's using input data from a variety of places to give you the outcome. Having in a nutshell, AI, the definition will change as time changes. Tomorrow, that system, which is a learning system, may not be AI. It may be a quantum-based crypto system, which may be able to do things which we can't even think of today. And then this today's system will become a calculator 10 years down the line.
So thank you so much for that. And in a way, there's a little trap. For today, I'm aware we have some really smart people in the room, really intelligent. They might even be experts on AI. I'm still encouraging everybody here to be in the role of a small business, whether you are or not. Because let's now dive in slightly further and see if we can get to grips with these different opinions. So once again, I'm just heading slightly onto a few images, a few pictures here. Let's go. So we don't need to answer the question of whether that is AI or not. Some people think it is and they have a view. Some people don't. The current definition largely is that AI augments or enhances what a human being could do without it. And businesses might need that, whatever it is. It could be faster, bigger, quicker, but mostly it's more intelligent because it's a complex world. And so essentially, whether AI is that or in the future, because it certainly isn't here now, this doesn't matter to a small business. When we go into the world of AI, we're going to be told this is AI or that is AI, and we could decide whether it is or not. The key thing around this, as we sort of dive into this topic, is that does it help my business get through one of the most difficult times human beings have ever faced, particularly in the world of business, in ways that I find enhance the intelligence of my organization in ways that help us innovate, grow, and survive? And that's what's on offer out there. And that's what my research was about. So, for example, at the moment, there is a product that's just being discussed that claims to be able to make the perfect piece of toast, the most elusive thing that we're all looking for. So it's called Clarify. It makes the perfect piece of toast with Toastify, an AI-powered toaster. I'm not sure if anyone's bought it. It has a chatbot, by the way, called Claribot as well. But essentially, it is an AI-powered toaster that uses visual recognition to produce the perfect piece of toast every time. I think there are internal cameras in the toaster, so it needs to move this a bit and make that a bit hotter and a bit warmer, and you get the perfect piece of toast each time. Now, the key thing around that is not particularly around the toaster at all. I ask questions a bit like these. Do I need it? Can it help my business? Will it enhance us? Will it improve our survival? Is it affordable? There's all the questions we would normally ask. And so if I can just dive back into the slides, just for a moment, if I can just dig it out. Got the Zoom thing in the way, of course. The question is, and I'm going to suggest, is really around value. That's kind of the key question. Sorry, I'm just slightly, here we go. Just coming back to my slides. There we go. And wearing the academic hat, technology push is all the shit out there that they've invented that they would like you to buy. But need or demand pull is real products that you actually need and are going to be helpful. And we've got very pretty and wide-eyed around the tech that's there. From now to the end of this workshop, we're going to ask, is this a solution looking for a problem, or do we have a real problem and AI can help address it? Really briefly, the 4T model, which is part of my own work, is sometimes it's going to help you simply take something you do physically and literally just make it digital, and AI will help you do that. And it could save you money, it could save you space, it could make it more accurate, it could make it faster, a bit like my calculator. Sometimes we're going to transpose that what's on offer will improve something we do. A classic thing here on Zoom is the ability for us to talk and not have to fly. It doesn't just replace it. We've got breakout rooms. We can do more than we might be able to do in a room. Transforming it is when it becomes so radically different, it's changed the game for us. And transcend, which is kind of in the future, is going to be, for example, when students don't need to go to universities because there's an implant in their brain that has all the learning. It's kind of science fiction. Now, just going into the world of AI, currently and in the future, I have an activity for you. And essentially what I'm going to do here in a moment is I'm going to put a link in the chat. And what I'm going to share with you is some research. In fact, let me do that now. And essentially you can see here, this is what I call my discovery exercise. And this is where I really need you to join in. And I really need you to use the chat if you can't use your microphone. And what essentially I'm going to do is put this in the chat right now. Let me just come back into Zoom for a moment. So if I stop sharing, you've got me again. In this document, which hopefully everyone can get hold of, are about, and I've updated this since last time, about 30 areas of AI that my research suggests you could use in your small business in the short term. And they are kind of, well, they're almost everything. So let me just dive in one more time. I'm just going to share the screen. I'm not going to run through this at all. It's just to give you the idea, but hopefully you're all on this link anyway, I'm hoping. So it's lots and lots of stuff. If you're interested in AI in printing, if you're interested in other forms of AI, just go down this list and have a look. It's almost like I called it before, the candy store. So we need to make sure this is addressing a real issue or a real problem. There is currently AI in expense and invoice management that's been shown to reduce your expenses and make you more efficient as a business. Classically chatbots and cash forecasting, doorbells and cameras, but some new ones that some people that were here before may not have seen that I found is there's some new stuff now around, let me just find where they are. There's not just around 3D printing, but there's ways that AI is assisting that. There's a new AI answer phone that I hadn't seen before. Fascinating what it does as well. There's lots and lots and lots of other AI things here to have a look at. It is the sort of the wish list. And so what I want to invite you to do, and this is going to rely on some good grown-up conversation, is in a moment we're going to put you into a breakout group for about 20 minutes. But before we do that, we'll have a nice embarrassing silence But it's not really embarrassing. It's I'm going to give you a chance to look through this list. Just go on into your own space, have a look down the list, and use your instinct, or imagine you're running a business or you are running a business, and pick 3 that you think, oh, that could be interesting. We need that. That's an area we've been looking at. You know, we're not very good at search engines, and we're not very happy about that at the moment. We do a lot of copywriting, just to have a quick look at that one. It could be that, you know, we want to look at cybersecurity. You know, we've got very, very high admin costs. Maybe a personal office assistant would help us. And all of these, the new one for us, Richard, is plagiarism detection as we write a book. And how do you remove plagiarism way beyond, you know, some of that stuff? A new one about inventory and stock control, if you've got that. Another new one about hiring new staff and AI in job interviews and psychometric testing. How do we test accessibility? We've got a diverse bunch of customers and we need to make sure our websites are accessible. All of these tools now, what they claim to do is beyond the products that were there before, that bringing in AI enables it to be more intuitive, it can learn, it can, a bit like Richard said about the note taker, AI enhances it. And for you, all of these are potentially affordable and they could potentially take 10, 20% of cost out of your business, improve productivity, make you more flexible. These are the promises they make. So can we get our critical hats on? We're going to go into breakout groups. And first of all, before we do that, I'm just inviting you to put your cameras off, to put your sound off, or say hello if you want to, but do a little bit of homework. Now, here's an opportunity for you to not do a bit of homework and just check your emails or check your social media. And I'm sort of begging that you don't do that, but you stay engaged, because this is the end of the presentation. This was all the background. Everything now is about diving into what AI can offer. So have a look down the list. This only needs to take about 10 minutes. And at that point, we're going to come back and we're going to put you into groups. And there's going to be about 20 minutes for you to show and tell about what you picked and why. And then we're going to come back into the room and see what's come up. Okay, so if you haven't got access to this document, because I know some people have just joined, we'll keep putting the link in the chat. Click on the link, it opens up a Google document, choose 3 links. Ultimately, you can click on loads of them and almost grab the 3 that you think they could be most relevant for my business, for me, or imagine you were running a business. Pick them out, put a critical hat on, and then when we go into breakouts in 10 minutes, we want you to share the ones that you found and why.
How are we looking over this, Paul? Do we need the URL?
So I put this in the chat right now. That's the plan. So brilliant, if I stop sharing, into the chat goes the link.
Got it, yeah.
There it is again for anyone that hasn't got it. Click on that. It should open up this discovery exercise. This is the research that we've done. I've picked them out for you. These are, I think it's a fairly exhaustive list as well. The main business, small business relevant AI products and services and developments that you ought to know about, but not all of them. So choose 3. So we're at 341 here. At 350, I'm going to ask you to still be with me. We're going to break out into a couple of groups, I think, with the numbers that we've got, maybe 3, and then share what you've found. Okay, so at the moment, it's embarrassing. It's what we're doing. I'm abandoning you to this document. Okay, and in 10 minutes time, we're going to break out. If there's any questions, feel free. But now 10 minutes, let's dive into that list. If you can't see the list, please let us know. So we are at 3:50, and hopefully you've just had the chance to dive into a couple of those. And what I'm going to do now is invite you to imagine that you run a business, or that you do run a business anyway. Put yourself in those shoes. Please don't use this as the opportunity to be an expert, to grandstand and tell everybody how much you know about AI. That's not the place for this. It's the place to be a humble business person. And so I think we've got about 16 in the room. So I'm going to create breakout groups. I'm going to invite the MKAI team to help with the conversations as well. But let's say, why did you choose what you chose? How might that help your business? Why did you choose it? What might be the benefits for it? You can also wear a critical hat as well. But let's see how AI could help our small business. So I think I'm going to take the gamble of creating 3 breakout rooms. We've got about 20 minutes for this, and I can't wait to hear what you've come back with in terms of your wearing a business hat. You should get an invite to join one of the breakout groups, so please accept that invite. Richard, you there?
Document or multiple other tools for some organization, and I think it's a good tools. And I chose also the image editing tools, the good tools also we can use in the area of AI. And I think those tools are very useful if you are a freelance who produce multiple document for your work.
Okay, and what were the overall, what criteria did you use to choose a tool?
When I saw the tools, so like I said, I chose those tools because you have to be specific in what you want to produce. So if you don't want to make a copy paste with someone already said, so you have to verify who said that before. So if you want to produce an article or a scientific article, so you don't want to use a quote, or you don't want to use a paragraph, you can verify this with plagiarism. So that's allowed to avoid those issues.
Yeah. Okay. How about Stephen? What did you choose, Stephen? And what were your criteria?
My criteria. Well, I picked customer service and the personal employee motivation side of things, because I don't know if I'm talking for my team or not really, but my view was, my idea for AI is, if you can write down a set of rules, an algorithm, if a human being can do that, a step-by-step algorithm, and make a machine do that, that's not AI, right? That's just an algorithm. So what I was looking at was how we might replace some very human aspects of ourselves, and maybe multiply that capability out. That seems a bit more AI to me. So I personally picked customer service, and I thought, you know, basically, if we can mimic in some way empathy, tone detection, things like that, language use, and build a model of the person you're talking to via AI, because you can't write an algorithm for that, right? Yeah. That would be excellent for me in my little business, because I wouldn't have to answer the phone so much, and I could trust the AI to deal empathetically with whomever else is on the other side of the phone. That's the sort of thing. Personal and employee motivation I also picked. There's some privacy concerns, but basically a bit like what social media does right now for advertising. All your interactions with anything, you can glean a lot of information about that and what their motivations are and their needs and wants and what will satisfy their well-being from that. And that's an AI thing, right? So those two things for me, anything so more humanistic, more to do with human relations for me was where I was looking.
And when you clicked on those links that were offered then, is that what you found, or you didn't think you found AI?
I'll be fair, I did not click on the links, right? Okay. I just looked at the areas which I could see might. So we also did talk about the sort of obfuscation or the scamming that might happen, because AI is like a marketing buzzword now, right? Anything's got AI in it now.
But just for the research, every link that I provided for you, I clicked through, obviously.
All right, okay, yeah.
And so it passed my test of this seems to be at least a bit of what you're saying, Stephen. This is the application of AI beyond the usual stuff that could genuinely potentially help a business in an affordable way. So maybe that's your homework, is to click on a few and see if you end up buying.
I will do that, Paul.
So you buy one by midnight, and then wonder the next day why the hell you've got it. Or
is there a code that I have to type in when I buy it to make sure you get your commission?
No, because some are articles and you'll have to do your own research. But others, I thought, well, this looks interesting. I don't know if it's any good, but it's worth chasing up. I think there's been some big steps this year. Anyone else? Anyone just wants to share as we step back a little bit? You know. Why did you click on something? What criteria did you use if you were running a business?
Okay, I'll go there. So essentially, I was looking at a social media angle of it. A lot of our work depends on marketing and sales, and things like there were a couple of things which were about copywriting, and then presentations, beautiful.ai, jasper.ai, and then setting up meetings, for example. That's a big part of what we do as well. A lot of meetings every day. So assembly.ai, hiring via tech woman seems interesting. Psychometric evaluations. And then I think what was just mentioned by Stephen there about chatbots, customer service chatbot, that seems interesting. Rocky.ai, more on human interaction, human growth. That seems interesting. So there are 4 or 5 which came out quite nicely out there, which I think are cost effective enough for small businesses that they can take it on, and do seem to help in areas which don't naturally come to most people, right? I don't think any one of us here enjoys setting up meetings, right? Is it in your diary? Is it my diary? Is it in everyone's diary? Is everyone available, kind of thing? So that can be taken out of the equation. That really helps everyone.
Yeah. Obviously. Yeah, and for me, what's interesting about that, about does it really help? And picking up Stephen's, I think quite rightly, setting a high bar for what do we mean by AI, is let me take an example of one I picked out, just because I'm currently doing some work with a colleague in France, and they make stuff, they 3D print. And they also claim to 3D print sustainably, because, you know, they're working with materials that are recycled, but that's good. But if you clicked on the current one, and I'm not an expert in this particular one, I just got drawn in, excuse me, and started looking at it. So you would have clicked on this one under 3D printing, and it's called AI Build. Now, what this does, Stephen, is this, and it uses, I think, vision sensing systems, is it can't just write its, to use algorithms, because it has to write its own algorithms. And the reason is it improves the process. So by writing its own algorithms, it's able to reduce failure, because a lot of people, when they do 3D printing, to get the right part at the moment is trial and error. So there's a huge amount of waste. So it collects data all the time. It also collects data from all the open source similar data around those processes. It can strengthen the build of a part. It can remove waste. It can improve the time because there's no delays. Yeah, and you can see it's got its kind of thought, and then there's some other ones around freedom that are less well defined. But it can take over a lot of the planning we normally do, and it can automatically write its own plans. And there's other scale capability. So this is taking, and I've got several companies in Brighton that I work with that are factories that do prototype products, and they're using 3D printing. And they say at the moment it's very costly. There's a huge amount of waste. It's real trial and error. And this, I'm only looking at it potentially, ticks every box for a small business that's trying to save cost, be more accurate, be more sustainable. And the AI absolutely is ticking my boxes, is that it can only do that through inductive machine learning, which it then applies intelligently. Does that tick your box, Stephen, just generally?
It does, but this rate, we in our little group, we also talked about what you give away for AI. So the data sets that you need, and this looks like a really good use of AI, and it's something that small businesses might have to think about. The efficacy of this depends on huge data sets, right? Machine learning just depends on huge data sets, and the data sets will be built from the interactions with their customers. So you'll be given, a bit like Facebook and social media, you'll be giving a little bit away of what you have in order to tap into the larger benefits of the platform. And it's just if there's certain things like IP protection, if you're 3D printing, maybe, you know, part of your yet to be protected trademarked solution, there may be an issue there. It is a bit like social media. You're giving something away in order to get something back, and that which might not be appropriate for lots of businesses.
Yeah, and what's interesting about this one, you know, this is getting slightly techie, but if you don't want to connect into the cloud, you can still get a lot of the benefits locally as it collects its data from your own processes and can still generate reduced waste and so on. But as you can see from all the companies along the top, there's an evolving data set around products that are in the public domain, open source, that can also feed into your products as well. So I guess there's two levels, and it ticked both boxes for me.
Yeah.
So ultimately from that, as we come into the last 7 minutes or so, and please stay around if you want to have a bit of a chat, we just share one kind of final set of real insights that I think I've picked up from the small business community and some of the academic stuff that's around practice. And as usual, still struggling to get rid of my Zoom at the top so I can get these slides going. But just the last couple of thoughts. We've just done something that the reason I suggest doing this is if you run a company and you're moving into AI, this is a brilliant workshop exercise to steal. If you have an away day, if you've got a business meeting next week, if you've got some colleagues, do this exercise, steal this document, and please do update it as well, and get your staff clicking on the ones that they think, because it will get them thinking about use cases for your business. It will get them focused on learning, how can AI work? You know, is it push or pull? Do we really need it? So it's a very good exercise in a training course. It's a very good exercise for induction of your new staff or for an away day. And ultimately, some final things are, you know, the danger of talking it up. Lots of people look at this. I was in a cafe earlier and go, that's amazing. And you can see them kind of saying, I want one. I want one. And I can, as much as I was very glad to get it as a birthday present, I can't see any use case for this for me in my business whatsoever. It's a lovely thing to show people. But of course, what happens is these things come out, and what you get according to the classic hype cycle model, which is from Gartner, is that you get a huge peak of inflated expectations. As you click on these links, I'm sure some of you have, I don't think any of those websites that are selling products are quite telling the truth. And you have to be evidence-based and look beyond the hype, because otherwise you tend to go into the trough of disillusionment when you get it home and actually try and use it in the business. And there's lots of experience of that. So it's common sense to look at several competing products. It's common sense to look at the use cases and decide whether you actually need it. If you do buy it, what the hype cycle says is we all go through the trough of illusionment every time we get a new iPhone that's promised to change your life. And actually, it's a bit of a better camera. It's a bit more secure. But then we get to use the phone properly, and we get to a plateau productivity where we do get the benefits out of the product. And that's really true of AI. You can't use it like Microsoft Word, where you just learn to spell check and bold it. You've got to use the tools and the features of it more and more to ramp up the benefits of it. And there's quite a lot of evidence that AI tools get harder and harder to use the more you try and use their features. That they have a front shop window that's easy, but then it starts to be a bit like coding. So you just have to be aware that AI is a bit like that. It has a bit of a shop front around a lot of the tools. Just briefly, you have to be aware of AI experts. Cool is really dangerous in this field because AI is currently cool, but that doesn't necessarily mean your business needs it. So where you can, contact another business that's using it. And that happens in Milton Keynes, is that quite often you can go on social media and say, has anyone used this plagiarism tool? And there's a user group on Facebook and you can find out whether you really need it or not. And this becomes really important in AI more than anything. You have to be careful of that hype. The danger, of course, is, this just adds to the other pile and you go in gadget meltdown. And a lot of companies are looking back on having bought 5 AI tools, all that seemed okay at the time, none of which really work now. They weren't what they really needed. And there was one that they did. And that's why I like Stephen's kind of carefulness about choose the one that's going to do it, not the 5, that seemed cool at the time. What does our business need? What AI tool or platform could address this need? You always start with a need, particularly during COVID. There's the list. What is it that's really driving it? And then look at my list again, and you'll find that each of those tools will probably promise to address all of these, but some don't. The 3D printers address quality. They don't really address any of the other things at all. I call it the artisanal approach to small business AI, just like a craft person. There's some such beautiful images of craftspeople that you have to use AI really precisely in your business. You can't use it generally. You have to say, we need to do this. We need to reduce our heating cost. And so we've brought an AI-based heating system that can take 20% out of our heating bill just when we need it. That's what you buy it for that need, because your bills are too high and we're in a building that doesn't have good insulation. That's artisanal, just like you take exactly the right tool for the job and you practice digital placement. You use the right thing in the right context. And I'm sure I don't need to tell people here that you're mature enough, but we've got lots of evidence that lots of small businesses have wasted a large amount of money on tools that in surveys they don't use. And we need to get that right. Placing our digital tools is just like placing our physical tools. You have to be careful, particularly, there's some older people on here, but if you have members of your business that want to buy stuff, quite often it's because they've got fear of missing out. They were in the pub or in the restaurant and someone said, we've got this cool tool, and you're not cool if you don't get one. You have to be careful of that. And the key thing we're learning in research is start with a pilot project. Try something small, try something manageable, download the free version, see if it works before you take the full step forward. It's kind of common sense. And the key thing is the benefit then is that you should never do it unless it enhances and enriches the practical intelligence of your business. That's kind of the key thing. And the last one is beware the AI winter. The majority of AI apps and startups will have disappeared within 3 years. So don't pay too much for it. Mostly what we're buying now doesn't have technical support 2 years from now in the AI field. And they're trying to ask you to buy the new version that's totally different from the old version, which is why you need to be very aware that a lot of AI is tested, it reaches a limit, and it isn't being integrated to the next thing because it requires entirely different chips or plugs. And there's not a thread of continuity in that tech space at the moment. Just in terms of then finally, from this session, even if it's about doing something or thinking differently, I'd love to invite everybody to say something as we kind of head off. Something you're taking away from this session, something you might do differently, a new insight, a new thought. Start with Henry.
Yeah, thanks, Paul. I think it's interesting how many different tools are out there. You never even thought would be done even with using AI. And I think my thought is to look at some things that could possibly be useful for me and to search what they do and don't do. As an engineer, I'm probably too interested in looking at the technicalities and what could be tweaked. So there's always a danger with tools like this or simulation tools that you spend all your time tinkering and trying what if, and never actually get a result out of it. I think what you were saying about really focus on what the benefits can be and make use of it rather than keep tinkering is something I'll take away.
Okay. Cassie, Evie, are you there? Or, yeah, there you are. So what's your takeaway from today?
The best criteria to choose when you want to use a tool, AI tools. And for the future, I think I will be more careful when I want to use a tool using AI.
Thank you. Lev, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. I think, Mike, I have a key takeaway, which is a little maybe unorthodox, which is perhaps there is somewhere on the internet a more complete list, or a blog of somebody who is doing this, looking at the AI solution as his full-time job or as his or her gig. I mean, we had looked at 43, you said, possible applications or possible apps. Probably there are hundreds, if not thousands of those. Most of them are looking for some, reviews and publicity. Same as with, well, anything. I mean, you take nootropics or any drugs or any software or any tools, there's a blogger who reviews them and writes articles about them. So maybe there's a platform somewhere where you can, dive in much more than in 33 points. But that's on one side. On the other side, I didn't know about more than half of those, which is exciting and frightening at the same time.
Yeah.
Because the pace at which they're developing and deploying them, it's just wow. And I'm not close to it. I'm quite open. I'm not shut it down and only know about something when it's already in my house. I mean, I'm not I would say I'm in technical enthusiast and early adopter. So
you're going to get the AI toaster, Lev, are you?
No, I prefer to do some juices in the morning. Toasts are not my thing.
Well, the AI juicer is coming anytime soon, I'm sure.
Well, yeah, if there would be actually, seriously, if there would be a machine that would do all the stuff and that didn't involve me, I would pay for it.
But it's interesting, the Star Trek replicator, almost every episode has a running joke that, the whiskey doesn't taste like whiskey. It's kind of, even in Star Trek, it's a poor copy. How about you, Kapil?
Thanks. So yeah, I've identified 5-6 tools which I will go and look into, and probably ask the team as well to look into this, because some of those can definitely help improve productivity of the team.
Thank you for that. Odelia?
Yes. So thank you for the brilliant session, Paul. My takeaway is that cool is a dangerous bias. So it's really about thinking before to spend money or invest your time in research. So think about the real application and how your business can benefit about this AI system. So thank you so much.
Thanks. Jitendra?
Hi, Paul. Thank you very much for sharing all your research. Okay, that must be taking quite a lot of time of yours, because it's not easy job to actually compiling all those lists. Okay, that's quite, yeah, I was very surprised actually the way you presented the list. Okay, it was very, I like most of them. Okay, I choose 3, the best one. But I want to add few more on that one, because I couldn't see anything related to the agriculture and health sector. Okay, because I think these two are like going mad like anything. Okay, in like a health and the agriculture, because there are lots of application I saw also. some of the college student, university student actually building some projects which are going quite fine actually, which is like a quite good one actually. For example, some disease prevention for the plant or something like that, like a forest deforestation. So many things actually you can explore that, and we can put that on. And obviously on the health also, like scanning the X-ray. Like for example, last time I built one small model also, like identifying the COVID symptom based on the chest X-ray. Those type of things actually quite fascinating, and also actually it's quite useful also from the if you see from the general public side. Like for example, if the people, and like as you said, AI is going so fast nowadays. Actually, every month you can say hundreds of research paper is coming out. Okay, so and also you already said that we have to be very careful on that, what we are really choosing and then going forward, because yeah, that application based on some research actually done. And then after a couple of months time, actually that research is already gone somewhere. Okay, and you basically build the application, but actually that has no baseline kind of thing. Okay, so we have to be very careful on that one. Obviously, it has a lots of advantages. Yeah, but there is a risk also there.
Thank you for those insights. And last but not least, Karen.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you. It was a very good session. I believe not go for what the others are talking about, you know, just be in your own head, in your own mind, and trust that the innovation is a good path to go, and to build something that is really new and that is really worthy. Also, taking care of what you see is not everything that is good for you. And, you know, just research and study and go ahead with your innovative idea and your creativity.
Thank you. Actually, Stephen, was there anything else you wanted to add?
I thought it was really good. Thanks, Paul, for today. It reinforced that it's just another purchasing decision, right? So apply the same discipline that you would to anything else. If it's a strategic, which it probably will be purchase, AI tends to be more of a strategic purchase. Do your due diligence on the business, look at the value proposition, and do some sort of ROI planning on it.
I would just add to that, the bit that's different, there's a lot coming through this year in AI. There'll probably be even more next year. But there is something in there that AI brings uniquely about learning and data. So and I don't know whether it's going as far as what you're saying, Stephen, about replacing human beings and all of that. But there's one criterion that's new, which is how is this helping our organization's ability to learn? And that becomes a new criteria, because it brings in a new being to the organization, which is the AI entity that can do different things to what maybe humans can do, and can maybe even think differently. And we're discovering that very slowly. Thank you all for being here. Last couple of things is, one, apparently the third version of this will be able to whisper in my ear if you're lying, or if you like me, or if you don't, because it will have a camera there. It will be the final version of Google Glass that actually works. And last of all, I think I've mentioned in the chat, I've made the Google document open source. So if anyone's got any things you find, please add them in, and just keep in touch with that link, because I'll be adding things in, and maybe there'll be 100 things on there by the end of the year. So stay in touch with MKAI. The links are on the slides. We've got more events happening all the time, and please come and join them. Come and be part of the community if you haven't been. And I feel privileged that you're all part of this, and hope to see you all soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
you very much, Paul. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Paul.
Thanks. So we stop the recording, I think.